My name is Nikolas Jones, and I have everything most people spend their lives chasing. A skyline apartment with glass walls, a garage full of cars I barely drive, a company that turned me into a millionaire before I turned 30. People call it success. I used to call it armor. Because when you have money, people stop asking who you are and start asking what you can give. And when you've been surrounded by enough smiles that fade the moment you stop paying, you stop believing any of them are real. Every woman I ever dated swore she was different, that she loved me for my mind, my humor, my drive. But love, I learned, has a currency, and mine was always cash. I'm not saying they were bad people, just practical. Vanessa wanted status. Chloe wanted thrill. Both said they loved me. Both proved they didn't. After them, I stopped trying. I built walls made of work and silence. You can't get hurt if you don't let anyone close. At least that's what I told myself. But there was one woman, the only one, who left an unforgettable mark. Not because she loved me, but because she didn't. Her name was Sophie Turner. She wasn't impressed by my cars or my suits. She didn't care about my influence or the weight my signature carried. She looked at me and saw a man who'd forgotten how to be human. And somehow, that hurt more than all the betrayals before her. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because before Sophie, before I learned what love really meant, there was Vanessa. When I met Vanessa, I was 28 and convinced that success would finally fill the silence in my life. My first company had just crossed its first million in revenue. I worked 16 hours a day, lived on caffeine, and thought that loneliness was simply a tax successful people had to pay. Vanessa entered my life like champagne bubbles, sparkling, intoxicating, impossible to ignore. She worked in marketing for a luxury brand and looked like she'd stepped straight out of one of their campaigns. Confident, flawless, with that practiced smile that made you forget where you were. We met at a charity gala. Ironic, because at the time, I couldn't care less about charity. I went only because my investors thought it looked good. Vanessa came with her boss, but spent most of the evening near me. "Everyone here wants to talk business," she said, tilting her head. "But you look like someone who actually enjoys a real conversation." I remember thinking she saw through me, that she was different. For the first few months, everything felt effortless. She laughed at my jokes, listened to my frustrations, and somehow always knew when to call. She said she loved my drive, my ideas, my imperfections. When I told her I was afraid of turning into one of those cold, detached businessmen, she took my hand and whispered, "Then don't. I'll remind you who you are." It sounded like love. And for a while I believed it was. We moved in together after a year. She decorated my apartment with expensive art and candles that smelled like Paris after rain. She said it made the place feel alive. I didn't notice how many of those purchases were charged to my card. I just signed the bills and told myself it didn't matter. She was part of my life now. Slowly, I started noticing the cracks. Whenever we went out with my team, she turned every conversation into a showcase of us. How we were building something big, how we were planning to invest. My friends called her charming. My gut called her calculating. She began talking about our image. She wanted us to look like the couple people envied, the designer clothes, the vacations, the public posts about work-life balance. I didn't see it then, but I'd stopped being a person to her. I'd become a brand extension. The first real fight happened on my birthday. She threw a huge surprise party at a rooftop bar, photographers, influencers, champagne pyramids, everything. At first I was flattered. Then I noticed the sponsor logos. The surprise party was a collaboration she'd arranged with my company's PR agency. My private life was a marketing campaign. When I confronted her, she laughed. "Oh, come on, Nick. This is how the world works. You should thank me. You're trending." Her words stayed in my head long after the guests left. "You should thank me." I started pulling away. Fewer business trips together, fewer gifts. I told her I needed space. She didn't argue. She just got colder. When she realized I was serious, she switched tactics. Tears, apologies, promises. "I don't care about the money, Nick. I care about you. You've just changed." Maybe I had, or maybe I was finally seeing her clearly. A month later, my accountant showed me something. She'd used my corporate card to fund her personal branding project. Nearly $80,000 spent on clothes, studio rentals, and a photographer. She even hired a PR agent to promote herself using my name. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. "You wouldn't have your success without people like me making you look good," she said quietly. "Don't act like you did this alone." That was the end. I told her to pack her things and leave. She didn't cry, didn't shout, just looked at me and said, "You'll regret this, Nikolas. No one will ever love you the way I pretended to." The word pretended slipped out before she could stop herself. That night, I realized love could be an investment, not of feelings, but of profit. After Vanessa, I promised myself to stay away from women who saw my bank account before my eyes. But loneliness is a persistent negotiator. It always finds the cracks in your resolve. That's how Chloe slipped in. She was younger, freer, lighter, or at least she looked that way. A model for a small fashion brand that rented the office next to mine. The first time I saw her, she was laughing with the receptionist, her phone in one hand, coffee in another, heels in her bag because they hurt too much to wear. She wasn't calculating like Vanessa. She didn't talk about investments or image. She talked about vibes, about how money was just energy, about living for the moment. At first it was refreshing. After 3 years of performing perfection with Vanessa, Chloe's chaos felt human. She loved spontaneous trips. Once woke me up at 4 a.m. saying, "Let's fly to Nice and see the sunrise." I said no. She booked tickets anyway. She made me laugh, and for a while that was enough. But laughter can be expensive. She never asked for gifts, but somehow she always got them. "I hate people who care about money," she'd say while choosing the most expensive bottle of champagne. When I tried to slow down, she'd smile and tease, "You can buy the moon, Nick, and you're arguing about a handbag?" She was never cruel, just careless. Careless with money, with promises, with love. I tried to hold on. I told myself she was different because she didn't lie. She was simply honest about not caring. But honesty without empathy is just another kind of cruelty. When I found out she'd used my car to go out with another man, I didn't even shout. I just asked, "Why?" She looked at me unbothered. "Because I wanted to. You're not my husband, and I'm not your property." That was the end. No drama, no tears, just silence, and her perfume lingering long after she was gone. For weeks I didn't feel anger or heartbreak, only exhaustion. It felt like every woman I let close eventually turned my life into a transaction, and maybe deep down, I'd taught them to. A month later, I was invited to a charity science gala, the kind of event I used to avoid but couldn't skip without raising questions. I went out of habit, dressed perfectly, smiled politely, and counted minutes until I could leave. And that's when I saw her. She was standing near the stage holding a glass of water instead of champagne, laughing at something a colleague said. There was nothing extravagant about her. A navy blue dress, hair pinned up, subtle makeup. But I couldn't look away. It took me a few seconds to recognize her, and when I did, my chest tightened. Sophie Turner, the quiet girl from high school. Back then, she was invisible to most people. Shy, with soft freckles, always reading or sketching. She had this habit of tucking her hair behind her ear whenever someone spoke to her. And once, just once, she told me she liked me. We were 17. She caught me after class, her hands trembling, a folded note in her fingers. It said, "You probably won't care, but I think you're the most interesting person I've ever met." I remember laughing, awkwardly. I told her I didn't date quiet girls. She turned red and nodded. "I know," she said softly. "That's why I wanted to tell you before I stopped caring." And she walked away. I never thought about it again, until that night. Now she wasn't the shy girl with the note. She was confident, calm, radiant in a way that didn't need an audience. I learned she worked for a medical research foundation, one of the organizations the event was supporting. When she saw me, there was no trace of recognition. Or maybe she just hid it well. She smiled politely, shook my hand and said, "Thank you for sponsoring the event, Mr. Jones." Mr. Jones. Not Nick, not even Nikolas. I wanted to remind her who I was, that we'd shared classrooms, exams, a tiny part of youth. But something stopped me. Maybe the way she looked at me. Distant, professional, unimpressed. For the first time in years, a woman didn't care who I was or what I owned. And that stung more than I expected. That night when I came home, I couldn't stop thinking about her. The way she spoke, how she laughed, and how she didn't care that I was rich. It was almost peaceful and terrifying. I realized I'd spent years buying affection, and now that someone saw through it, I had no idea how to be me. When I saw Sophie again, something inside me shifted. It wasn't lust or nostalgia. It was something heavier. Like fate reminding me of the one person I'd ignored when I should have looked closer. For years, I'd been surrounded by women who wanted what I could offer. Vanessa wanted my future. Chloe wanted my present. But Sophie, she didn't want anything. And that's what drew me in. After the gala, I couldn't stop thinking about her. The way she spoke, calm but certain. Her quiet laugh, the way she didn't care who I was. I found out she worked at a medical research lab that focused on immune therapy. Her name was in every report about breakthroughs and promising projects. So I showed up. I told myself it was coincidence, that I was just supporting research. But it wasn't. I wanted to see her, to remind her that I existed, and maybe to rewrite history. When I arrived, she looked surprised but professional. "Mr. Jones," she said, offering a handshake. "Thank you for visiting. We're honored, but we're not currently seeking private investment." "Call me Nikolas," I said. She smiled politely. "I'd rather not. We try to keep things formal here." That formality stung more than I expected. I tried again the only way I knew. Gestures, attention, gifts. The next morning, she found a bouquet of lilies on her desk, a note attached. "For someone who makes the world a little better." No response. A few days later, I sent pastries for her team. Her colleagues thanked me. She didn't. So I doubled down. Flowers again, a bracelet, a book signed by one of her favorite scientists. A donation to her department in her name. Finally, she called. Her tone was calm but sharp. "Mr. Jones, could we meet? I'd prefer to talk face to face." I thought she'd changed her mind. I was wrong. We met at a cafe near the hospital. She arrived late, hair tied up, lab coat half buttoned, a few ink stains on her fingers, beautiful in a way that felt real. "Thank you for meeting me," I said, standing up. She sat without smiling. "I'll be direct. Please stop sending things to my workplace." I froze. "You don't like gifts?" "It's not about liking or not liking," she replied. "It's about intention. You're trying to buy my attention." "It's not flattering, Nikolas. It's exhausting." Her words hit me harder than I wanted to admit. I tried to joke. "You always were honest, even in school." Her expression didn't change. That was a long time ago. I hesitated before asking, "Is that why you don't want to talk to me now?" Because you once refused me?" she finished, looking straight into my eyes. "No, Nikolas, I don't even remember that. I've had too many things to think about since then. Patience, work, real life. It shouldn't have hurt, but it did. Because I remembered. I remembered the note she gave me, her trembling hands, her quiet voice. I remembered laughing. And now, she didn't even remember me. I forced a smile. "So, you're not looking for anything?" "No," she said simply. "Not with anyone, especially not someone who thinks affection is something you can purchase." There was no anger in her tone, only clarity. That made it worse. She stood up to leave, but I reached out. "Sophie, wait. I know I've made mistakes, but I've changed." She looked at me, really looked, and said softly, "No, you haven't. You're still trying to impress people with things that don't matter." Then she left, her coat swaying behind her like a closing curtain. I sat there for a long time, staring at the untouched coffee. I wasn't used to rejection, not like this, not from someone who didn't even seem tempted. That night, I sent more flowers, bigger, brighter, imported. A note this time. "I'm sorry if I offended you. I just wanted to remind you that someone believes in what you do." She didn't reply. Days passed. I saw her once at another event. She nodded politely and kept walking. That indifference tore through me. I'd had women scream at me, cry, beg to stay. Sophie just didn't care. I started calling her name at night in my thoughts like a prayer I didn't believe in. And still, I couldn't stop doing what I always did. Sending, buying, giving. It was the only language I spoke. I told myself she'd come around, that everyone eventually did, that she'd see I was serious. But in truth, I wasn't chasing her love anymore. I was chasing a redemption for the boy who once mocked a shy girl's courage. And maybe deep down, I already knew. She wasn't the one who needed to change her heart. I was the one who needed to learn how to have one. After Sophie's rejection, something inside me refused to accept it. Not because of pride, though I had plenty of that, but because for the first time, I felt I'd met someone whose opinion actually mattered. She didn't care about money, luxury, or status. So I decided to show her I could be the kind of man she respected, even if, at first, it was just another performance. I started small, a public donation to the research foundation where she worked. I made sure the media covered it. Photos, statements, smiling scientists. I thought she'd see it and realize I was serious, that I could use my fortune for something meaningful. She didn't react, so I went further. I funded scholarships for medical students, paid for equipment upgrades, even sponsored a new lab expansion, the one Sophie's team desperately needed for their new immune therapy project. When I saw her at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, she was surprised but distant. "You did this for the project?" she asked quietly. "For the future," I replied, "and maybe a little for you." She sighed, not smiling. "You're trying too hard, Nikolas." "Maybe," I said, forcing a grin, "but at least I'm trying." The truth was, it wasn't for the future. Not at first. It was still about her. Every donation, every photo opportunity, every quote I gave to the press about social responsibility, I did it imagining her reading it, maybe thinking I wasn't completely lost. For weeks it felt like another business campaign. I invested, the world reacted, and I measured the results. But then, something unexpected happened. One evening I attended an event for children with rare diseases, one of the initiatives I'd agreed to fund. It was supposed to be just another appearance. Cameras, speeches, polite applause. But during the event, a little girl, no older than 6, came up to me. She was wearing a small hat to hide the patches of hair she'd lost from treatment. She handed me a drawing of a heart with my name inside it and said, "Thank you for helping me get my medicine." Her mother stood behind her, crying quietly. And for the first time in years, I didn't know what to say. I'd spent my whole life making deals, numbers, contracts, percentages. But this wasn't a transaction. This was gratitude. Real, raw, undeserved gratitude. That night I went home and didn't turn on the lights. I sat by the window staring at the city I'd helped build, realizing I'd never really seen it. The next day I called my assistant and told her to cancel the press release about the donation. "Why?" she asked. "It's good PR." "Because I didn't do it for PR," I said. "Not this time." And it was true. Something had changed. Slowly, quietly, without me planning it. I began visiting hospitals and schools I supported, without cameras, without reporters. I talked to the people there, nurses, teachers, patients, and every time I saw how a few $1,000s could change an entire life, something inside me softened. For the first time, I felt proud not of what I owned, but of what I gave away. Few weeks passed. My name started appearing in articles about philanthropy, about the businessman who gives without expecting return. People began thanking me in person, strangers on the street, employees who felt inspired, and I found myself smiling, genuinely smiling, when they did. One afternoon, I received a message. It was from Sophie. "I heard about the foundation you set up. You didn't have to do that. But thank you. The work we're doing now might actually change something. No cold tone, no distance. Just words, honest ones." A week later, we ran into each other at a hospital event. She looked different, softer somehow. When she saw me, she smiled for the first time since our reunion. "You've been busy," she said. I shrugged, trying to make up for wasted time. She studied me for a long moment. You've changed. Maybe, I said, or maybe I just found better reasons to spend. We both laughed quietly. It was the first time I'd heard her laugh like that, freely, without the edge of suspicion. After the event, we walked outside together. She told me about her research, about the new lab I'd helped build, how they were close to something big, a therapy that could save thousands of lives. Her eyes lit up as she spoke, and I realized that I'd never really seen her until that moment. When we said goodbye, she hesitated, then added softly, "You know, Nikolas, maybe I was wrong about you." That single sentence felt like redemption. For the first time, I wasn't chasing her approval. I'd earned it. Not by buying her things, but by becoming someone worth believing in. I used to think love was adrenaline, the chase, the power, the possession. But with Sophie, it was silence. The kind that filled every corner of my house, my thoughts, my heart, and for the first time it felt enough. A month after she'd said, "Maybe I was wrong about you," everything changed. We started seeing each other more often, at first under the excuse of discussing projects, then just because we wanted to. Lunches turned into dinners, calls turned into long nights, and soon we didn't even bother pretending we were keeping distance. Sophie wasn't like anyone I'd ever met. She didn't need attention, didn't want to be impressed. She listened when I spoke, really listened, and when she smiled, it felt like sunlight after years of fog. I'd never been this much in love. Not with Vanessa's charm, not with Chloe's energy. Sophie was something else. She made me want to be quiet, to be honest, to be better. Within weeks, we were almost inseparable. She stayed at my place more often than her own, her notebooks scattered across my desk, her coffee mug next to mine every morning. Sometimes she'd sit on the balcony reading reports while I worked beside her, and I'd catch myself thinking, this is it. This is what peace feels like. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing anyone. I'd already found her. One afternoon, Sophie called to say she'd be home late. A conference presentation, something about new funding proposals. I didn't mind. I opened a bottle of wine, planned dinner, and looked around the apartment that finally felt like a home. And then the doorbell rang. When I opened it, the air left my lungs. Chloe. It had been 3.5 months since I'd seen her. She looked different, softer, calmer, almost fragile. Her makeup was light, her clothes loose, but her eyes, they still carried that same mix of fire and unpredictability. "Nick," she said quietly, "can I come in?" I hesitated. My instincts screamed no, but politeness, or guilt, made me step aside. She walked in slowly, looking around the living room. "New decoration?" she asked. "Not really," I said. "What do you want, Chloe?" She turned to me, took a breath, and said, "I'm pregnant." For a second, I thought I misheard. "What?" "I'm pregnant," she repeated, voice steady now. 3.5 months. I froze. The math hit before the meaning did. 3.5 months. We'd split 3.5 months ago. I forced a laugh. Nervous, hollow. "That's not possible. We were careful." She didn't smile. "Nothing's 100%. You know that." "Are you saying it's mine?" She met my eyes. "I'm saying it's ours." The room spun. No, Chloe, you can't just come here and... "I'm not asking for money, Nick." Her tone sharpened. "I just thought you should know. I'll take any test you want, but I'm not lying." I stared at her, waiting for the smirk, the manipulation, the twist I'd learned to expect from her. It didn't come. She looked tired, scared even. For the first time since I met Chloe, she didn't look like she was acting. She placed a hand on her stomach, and something inside me broke. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not when everything had finally fallen into place. Not when I'd finally found Sophie. Chloe's voice trembled. "I'm not expecting anything from you. I just didn't want you to find out from someone else." I rubbed my temples, my mind racing through possibilities. Denial, anger, escape. But underneath all that noise, there was something heavier. Responsibility. "Does anyone else know?" I asked. "No, just you." I nodded slowly. I need time. Take it, she said, moving toward the door. But don't take too long. This isn't going away. And then she left. Just like that. No manipulation, no demands, just truth. When the door closed, the silence felt unbearable. I poured myself a glass of wine but didn't drink it. My hands were shaking. I stared at the city lights outside, everything so distant, so meaningless. For years, I'd been a man who thought money could fix anything. Then Sophie came and taught me it couldn't. And now, for the first time, I wished it could. I sat there for hours, waiting for Sophie to come home, rehearsing lies, then deleting them in my head one by one. I can't tell her. I can't lose her. But the truth was waiting, unmovable, cruel. When I finally heard her keys in the door, my heart nearly stopped. She came in, smiling, tired from work, kissed me on the cheek and said, "You look pale. Everything okay?" I nodded, or tried to. "Yeah, just long day." She poured herself tea and started telling me about her presentation, her laughter filling the room, and I just watched her. This woman who'd given me peace, purpose, light, and in that moment I realized I was standing on the edge of losing it all. The man I used to be would have hidden it, lied, pretended. But the man Sophie believed I'd become, he couldn't. So I sat in silence, broken, knowing that tomorrow I'd have to choose between love and duty. And whichever I chose, part of me would die with it. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Chloe's face, pale, frightened, honest, and then Sophie's smile, warm and unguarded, the way it felt when she leaned her head on my shoulder. Two women, two worlds colliding, and I was standing between them, helpless. At dawn, Sophie was still asleep beside me, breathing softly. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering how life could turn so cruelly after feeling so perfect. I'd spent decades trying to buy happiness, and when I finally found it freely given, fate came to collect a debt. By morning, I knew I couldn't hide it. I owed Sophie the truth, even if it destroyed us. When she woke, I was sitting by the window, still in the same clothes as last night. She rubbed her eyes, sleepy and smiling. "Did you stay up all night?" I nodded. My voice was dry when I said, "There's something I need to tell you." She frowned, instantly serious. "What happened?" I told her everything. Every word felt heavier than the last. About Chloe coming, about what she said, about the timing, about my doubts. Sophie didn't interrupt. She just listened, silent, motionless, her expression unreadable. When I finished, I waited. Finally, she spoke. "You think it's true?" "I don't know," I whispered, "but she's sure. And if she's telling the truth..." I couldn't even finish the sentence. Sophie looked away, her eyes fixed on the floor. "And what do you plan to do?" I hesitated. I wanted to say, "I'll stay with you, no matter what." I wanted to promise that love was enough. But another image came to mind, a child, innocent, born into chaos. And I couldn't. "I need to be there," I said quietly. "If it's my child, I can't turn away." She nodded slowly, her jaw tightening. "I thought you'd say that." I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away, but she didn't hold it either. "I love you," I said. "You have to believe that." Her voice trembled when she replied, "I do. That's what makes this hurt." We sat there in silence, two people who had found everything and were about to lose it. After a long pause, she whispered, "Go. Do what you think is right. But don't expect me to wait." "I'm not asking you to," I said softly. "You deserve someone whole. I'm not that man anymore." She nodded, tears gathering in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "I wish we'd met at a different time," she said. "So do I." And then she stood, kissed my forehead, and walked away. Quietly, gracefully, like someone leaving a room she once loved. When the door closed, the silence was unbearable. I sat there for hours, knowing that this time I wasn't losing a woman to greed or lies. I was losing her to life itself. The next day I called Chloe. We met at a small cafe. She looked nervous, as if expecting me to yell or accuse her. "I'll take the test," she said quickly. "I'll prove it's yours." I nodded. "You don't have to. I believe you." Her eyes widened. "You do?" "Yes, and I'll take responsibility. For you, for the baby." Chloe looked at me for a long moment, then whispered, "You really changed, Nick." I almost smiled. Took me long enough. The months that followed were slow, heavy, quiet. We got married quietly, without guests or celebrations. Chloe wore a simple dress, I wore a black suit, and the ceremony lasted less than 10 minutes. There were no cameras, no flowers, no speeches. Just two people standing side by side, both knowing this wasn't love, it was duty. And yet, when I saw her place her hand on her stomach, as we said the vows, something inside me softened. This child hadn't asked for any of this. The least I could do was give it a family. After the wedding, we moved into a new house, smaller, quieter, away from the noise of the city. Chloe smiled more often now. She was calmer, gentler, maybe humbled by motherhood. We learned to coexist, not as lovers, but as partners in a promise. But some nights when she was asleep beside me, I'd step outside, sit under the porch light, and think of Sophie, where she was, whether she still thought of me, whether she'd ever forgive me for doing the right thing instead of the selfish one. A year later, when our son was born, I held him for the first time. Tiny, red-faced, fragile, and something inside me healed. He grabbed my finger with his hand, and in that moment, I understood what unconditional love truly meant. It wasn't Sophie's forgiveness I needed anymore. It was this quiet, pure connection that asked for nothing but presence. Still, some nights when the house is silent and the world feels too big, I think of her laughter, of her fire, of the way she looked at me that last morning, heartbroken but proud. And I tell myself that maybe one day, when the child is grown, when time has washed away the wounds, fate will let our paths cross again. Maybe she'll look at me and see not the man who once broke her heart, but the one she helped rebuild. Because even now, years later, every good thing I do, every life I touch, every change I make, it all began the day she refused my flowers. And maybe that's what real love is. Not what you keep, but what makes you better when it's gone.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and explore our channel for more love, betrayal, and redemption tales.